today is on rounding. Our essential question, how do I round numbers? Now, rounding is a way to estimate. When I was a little girl and we went to the grocery store, one of the ways my mom kept me busy was with estimating our bill. So as we went through the grocery store and we picked up an item that was $3.99, I would round that to $4. And we picked up a bunch of bananas for $2.49, and I would round that to $2.50. And I would keep a running total of how much money we were spending to make sure that my mom had enough money when we got to the checkout counter, and also, quite frankly, to keep me busy and keep me from pestering her. So, we use rounding to estimate values. Our answers are not exact, okay, but they're close. So, how do I go about rounding? How do I round? All right. Sometimes the way you round does depend on the context of what's going on. When I was a little girl, I always rounded up to the nearest quarter because we wanted to make sure we had enough money. So having money left over was fine. Sometimes in mathematics, we will round up and sometimes we will round down. Sometimes we have to think about the context and decide which one to do. That's usually when you have a word problem. But overall, the rules for rounding is number one, locate the place you're rounding to. And we are going to underline that place value. Then we're going to look at the place value to the right. If it's a 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, we will round down. If it's a 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, we will round up. All place values after the one you're rounding to, after the one we underlined, become zeros. Now, if you have a child in elementary school, they might be taught a little saying, 5 or more raise the score, 4 or less, let it rest. So 5 or more, 5 through 9, raise, round up the score. 4 or less, let it rest, round down. So, in order to do all of this, we still have to remember our place value. Because most of the time when you're asked to round, it'll say round to the nearest hundredths place, or round to the nearest unit, or round to the nearest thousand. So if you don't know your place value, there's no way to do that. In the previous two lessons, we talked about how the ones place is the critical place value. It's the most important place value we have. Okay? And the ones place is immediately to the left of the decimal point. In this case, it's the 3. The most important place value. As we move to the left, we have the tens, then the hundreds, then the thousands, then the 10,000s, the 100,000s, then we're on to the millions. I'd like to have $9,876,543. I could even do without the almost 22 cents on the end. And $9 million would make me quite happy. Let's look now to the right of our decimal point. Remember that we've got the rainbow or symmetry or mirror effect going on. The 2 is in the tenths place. This one is in the hundredths place. And the 9 is in the thousandths place value. Next would come the 10,000ths, 100,000ths, millionths, and on and on and on forever. There's no end to place value, but these are the only ones we're going to hold you accountable for. So, round to the nearest tens place. Tens, there's no TH on the end of that. So, as I look at this, here are my, let's identify my ones. My ones place is the 5. So that means the 10, I'm going to move that just a little bit, because my little stars getting in the way. Come on. Okay. The 10 is to the left of the ones place. So I'm rounding to the 6. Now I look to the right at the 5. 5 or more raise the score. So 5 is going to make me go up. This is going to be approximately. We use a wavy equal to sign to be approximately. And we're going to keep the 1. The 6 is going to go up to a 7. And everything after that becomes a 0. So 0.000 or just plain 170. Either way is considered acceptable. Let's look at the next example. My ones place is right there. So that means the 10 is here at the 3. I look to the number to the right, 2. 4 or less, let it rest. So we're going to go down. So it'll be approximately. Keep the 2, keep the 9. When you go down, you keep the number you're rounding to. Everything else turns into a 0. Another way to write this, 2,930 without the decimal point and the place holding zeros. Either way is acceptable. For our next one, we're asked to round to the tenths place with that TH, meaning we're looking on the right side of the decimal point. Okay, again, I need to identify my ones place. In this case, it's the 5. Tenths is immediately to the right. So now I look at the 4, which is to the right of my tenths place. 4 or less, let it rest. So this is approximately. Keep the 1, the 6, the 5, the decimal point, and because I'm rounding down, I keep the 2. Everything else turns into a 0. Okay. We're still rounding to the tenths place. So I identify my ones. Tenths is to the right of the ones. So I look to the right of that, and that's 4. 4 or less, let it rest. So keep the 2,932 decimal point. Because I'm rounding down, I keep the 2, and everything else becomes a 0. Round to the nearest whole number. Okay? So I need to identify my ones place. This is another way of saying the ones place or the units place. The ones place is the 5. I look to the right, and 2 I'm going to round down. So 165.000 or just 165. If all you have are zeros after the decimal point, you can leave off the decimal point in those zeros. If you have any number other than 0 after the decimal point, you've got to keep it. For this one, here's my ones place. 5 or more raise the score, so 9 means I'm going to go up. Approximately 2,930 2 goes up to a 3.000, or 2,933. Either way is correct. So to summarize this, I guess I would say underline the place value you're rounding to. Look at the place value to the right. And remember, five or more, raise the score. 4 or less, let it rest. Okay, at this point, there's some practice in your packet, in your textbook, and on Excel.